What's up, guys, and welcome to the weekly Q&A. Before we get into questions, we have two quick announcements. First, there is a giveaway at the end of this video, so stay tuned for that. And second, we are now only 1 week away from DragonCon, which is, it's the most wonderful time of the year. I've been better about it this year. Like the past few, I've been talking about DragonCon for like 8 weeks at this point. Tried to keep it a little more on the DL, be a little more cool. But this is probably our biggest year at DragonCon.
Yeah.
We're on 4 panels this year. One Friday, one Saturday, one Sunday, and one Monday. Molly's on her first panel.
On Saturday.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about Episode 9 speculation. Mm-hmm. Not much to speculate on, but we're going to do our best.
Yeah. I have a lot to say.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. And then we are going to have a fan meetup. The details about that are on Twitter.
Yeah, there's going to be a pinned tweet on our Twitter page, so if you go to just our profile, the very first tweet that you see will have all the information for the meetup. It's Friday night starting at 6 in the Hilton Hotel. And
we should say that also our friends from Space Dock and Templin Institute are both going to be there. They will be at that meetup as well. If you don't know their channels, check them out. They're great guys. We've never met them in person. We're very excited that they're coming to our town to hang out and party, and DragonCon is the best.
They're kind of riding our coattails a little bit with the meetup. They could have done their meetup on a separate day or place, but
they keep DMing us, asking us if it is, are you sure it's okay if we do our meetup with you? It's like, please.
Just keep your distance.
Molly's sassy today.
Sean Mary asks what we would like to see out of Star Wars Resistance.
I'm keeping my expectations pretty much centered on like what I got out of Star Wars Rebels Season 1. I've said before that Rebels was probably something that I wouldn't have started watching if I saw the first trailer for Rebels and I didn't have this channel, I'd probably be like, not for me. It's something that turned into something that I'm very glad that I watched all of it, but I think that Season 1 is probably going to be along those same lines where it doesn't get too heavy. It's more lighthearted, but throughout the season, things get a little more real. That's kind of what I'm expecting. So I'm just hoping for Season 1 to be a lighthearted tale about pilots, and we're going to get some scattered lore about the First Order or the Resistance here and there. I'm not expecting too much, basically, out of the first season.
I actually think I should rewatch the first season of Rebels, because it's been a long time. I don't think I watched any of it since it first aired. But just to remind me what the first season of Rebels was like. But as far as expectations, I feel the same way. And on top of that, I just really want to see some cool ships and some cool racing, because that's supposed to be a part of the show. And I don't know, I don't have specific expectations, really.
Yeah, I honestly haven't thought about it all that much. I've just been like, Resistance is coming out. Cool, I'll watch it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking forward to new characters and, just seeing what's going on and whatever that ocean planet is.
Yeah, it is really hard to gauge just what we're getting off of 1 minute of footage. So, I don't know, that trailer was just fine.
It's always interesting when you get little tiny pieces of what's going on elsewhere in the galaxy and how that may or may not fit into other stories.
Yeah. Okay, here's something that I guess I'm a little hopeful of. I hope that there aren't any Force users, at least early on. I wouldn't mind if something happened down the line, but I think that it should be Jedi free. Yeah. I think it should be about, normal people just kind of surviving on this station called Colossus or whatever, just racing and having fun, but then they're also having to deal with this new First Order conflict that's rising up. So,
was it confirmed that it's 6 months before Force Awakens, or just before Force Awakens?
It seems like it was confirmed. The HTML of all things on StarWars.com said it was 6 months before. So I would assume that that's accurate.
Yeah, when they said stuff about it on the Star Wars show, they just said before Force Awakens.
Right.
So it's vague, but...
Okay, I'm wondering, someone pointed this out on Twitter, and I was like, oh, that's actually a great point. This could go, Season 1 could end at the Battle of Starkiller Base or The Last Jedi. That could be just, this first season is the 6 months until the movies, And then season 2, which will start airing before episode 9, like, we could start getting some teases about what's going on in the galaxy after The Last Jedi and stuff like that. And I think that could be pretty intriguing.
Yeah, I'm into it. With 3 television or streaming series on the air simultaneously in 2019, Peter Houston Henkin wants to know how we think Lucasfilm will handle the release and wonders if it will be too much at once.
So we don't know when the schedule for all these things are, but they've been saying that the streaming service is going to come out in late 2019. And I'm expecting it to launch with either Clone Wars or the Favreau show or both. And yeah, at that time, theoretically, Resistance Season 2 would be in the middle of its first half.
I see them releasing it at the same time as the new Clone Wars, because that's going to really spike sales.
Yeah, it'll launch with Clone Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it'll launch with Favreau series?
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think they're going to overwhelm people too much.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
At once, but I feel like we might find out some release dates at D23 this year.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good time to announce it. Just
Yeah.
like stuff that we already know is coming. It's not announcing new things. It's just like, all right, here's when, and it's very business sided almost.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what kind of D23 is about.
Yeah, like the last D23, a lot of the Star Wars news that we hoped to get, we didn't get, about like Solo and things like that. And
Although, is there a D23 this year or next year? I think the next one is next year. They do it every 2 years. So there'll be a celebration and then a D23. So yeah, I don't know. But
oh, so D23 is after Celebration?
yeah.
Okay, so
if my dates are right.
We might find out then at Celebration
Yeah.
more about dates and whatnot. But then again, the Star Wars show happens every week.
Yeah,
so
they could always just drop something.
yeah.
But I guess, yeah, I don't think that we're going to have all 3 at the same time. But even if we did, I don't know that I would feel like it's overload, because I think that all 3 are kind of directed at different people. Like, I don't think everyone's going to be clamoring to watch Resistance every week, and the people who really don't feel like it's their thing are probably very excited for the Clone Wars to come out and the Favreau series. Like, I think that Resistance is aimed at a younger audience, so it necessarily won't be overload, especially because I think Clone Wars is just going to be this limited 12 episode thing, and I think it's done. So
yeah. Especially if they say they release these things all at the same time. If they do that and it's the episodes are released slowly over time, that's different than, say, how Netflix just puts out a season of a show all at once.
That's true too. It might
people
not
binge watch it.
It might not be a thing where here's 12 episodes of Clone Wars, 10 episodes of the Favreau show, and Resistances every week. I do hope they do it weekly for all that stuff, just so we can keep up.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
although I do love a good TV show binge.
Yeah, I know, but it's so much to binge and like do videos on at the same time. It'll be too much.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it would feel like overload.
Yeah.
But I think if it were spread out and everything were released weekly, even if it was one's on a Monday, one's on a Wednesday, one's on a Friday, like, I think that's manageable. And not, as someone who takes in every piece of Star Wars content, I don't feel like that's overload. I'm just excited about it.
I don't see them releasing, especially the Clone Wars season, all at once, because imagine how many kids would call out of school that day.
Yeah.
Their parents would just be like, nope, you don't have to go to school.
I think they'd
today.
be calling out of work. I think the Clone Wars group now is not so much in school.
It would be kids and their parents.
Yeah.
Everyone would call out sick.
I think the target audience for Clone Wars now, though, is people in their 20s, probably in the workforce.
Yeah. So people would be like, wow, it's a big flu going around, huh?
Yeah, right? Clone Wars flu.
Richard Quinlivan asks if Lucasfilm could simplify the Old Republic era when we start exploring it, if we do. And will there be any conflicts as there were in Legends, or will they be combined into fewer?
I think that things are just going to be different. I don't know that they're necessarily going to simplify things. I think it's just going to change. Maybe that could be seen as simplification. I don't know. I'm kind of talking through this. I do definitely think we're going to explore the Old Republic. So we already know that the Mandalorian Wars happened. They've been mentioned many times. We know that the war between the Jedi and the Sith has happened. Like, that's been mentioned many times. I don't know, if it's going to be like the hyperspace wars and then the new Sith wars. I think that a lot of those things are going to be just changed. I don't know that the hyperspace wars ever happened. We don't know that the Sith pureblood race ever existed yet.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Mandalorian Wars will probably stay at least the same in name. And then I don't know about the Jedi Sith Wars. I think that could be just like this one big conflict that's been happening for forever.
Yeah.
And not necessarily like the new Sith Wars and then the stuff with Vitiate and all that. Like, I think it'll be maybe one big war. So in a sense, I could see it being simplified, I guess.
I do think they would simplify it if they go into it, because like otherwise it would be one of those things where I don't think they could do it properly without simplifying it on screen, and then they'd have to release like a whole big book series basically rehashing all the Legends stories. So yeah, I definitely think they would simplify it to like the greatest hits.
Yeah, I think that's at least how the films will be. Like, I don't know, I could totally see a Mandalorian trilogy happening, a Jedi versus Sith trilogy happening, or maybe that's the Benioff Weiss series. Maybe that's something, like they keep saying it's a series, which is interesting to me that they didn't call it a trilogy or something, that maybe it's something where it's just called like Jedi versus Sith, and it's like this one takes place 10,000 years ago, this one takes place 5,000 years ago, and like they just tell stories that are connected by that war, but not necessarily the characters.
Yeah, I was going to say, along with simplifying it, I feel like they would only tell the stories that would connect to other stories within the Star Wars universe.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that they're going to connect with like the Skywalker saga.
Maybe not, but like I don't know if they would like bring in the Yuzan Vong.
I would be surprised.
Yeah.
I'd be surprised if the Yuzan Vong ever came back. I don't know.
Yeah. I do think simplifying it would be a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, especially for movie audiences, it's probably going to be more simplified for the films, and then it'll get, I mean, the way it is now, the way it's always been, it's the movies are the most accessible, and then the books and like the comics, like the deeper you go down that funnel, the more like detail and the more it's for the hardcore fans. So yeah, the movies probably will have a bit of simplification to them.
I mean, this stuff takes time. Of course, when episode 7 came out, it was very safe. It was very much like, you know, A New Hope, and everyone was like, oh, this is too similar, you know, to the older movies. But you got to realize they got to play it safe for a little while and get everybody used to having this new content, and then they can start exploring more stuff.
Yeah.
Like when they brought in Maul in Solo, that was kind of a bold move.
Yeah, I think we're getting out of that kind of safe territory as we exit the Skywalker saga. I think they'll be like, okay, people are getting used to having Star Wars around every year, and I think they'll be able to introduce some stuff like the Mandalorian Wars, and I've always kind of felt like that would be a good choice because Mandalorians are very recognizable, even to casual fans. So you could show a bunch of Mandalorians flying around and shooting things, and I mean Jedi versus Sith too, because then it's just lightsabers, and everyone knows what lightsabers are. But yeah.
Aiden Walsh wants to know if Episode 9 could run the risk of ending too similarly to Return of the Jedi with the restoration of the New Republic, and how J.J. Abrams could go about avoiding that.
Yeah, I think there's a risk there of it feeling too samey again. Like, will Kylo Ren redeem himself just like Darth Vader did? And will the Resistance beat the bad guys? And, like, are we going to get a new government like we did in Return of the Jedi? Yeah, I think there's a risk there. And I think, in broad strokes, it might be very similar.
Yeah, I mean, what's the alternative?
Right? The bad guys win, and, like...
And then we're like...
I guess they could find common ground. I think that's unlikely. But
yeah, I don't think people would like that either.
I think the difference, the way that he can avoid it, is for him to remember that this is about the Skywalkers. This is the Skywalker saga. So I think that everything that happens at large in the universe, be it a shift in power to the new Republic or what have you, it's more important that we focus on what happens with the Skywalkers. How does that family end up? Because that is the overarching connective tissue between all 9 films, and everything else is kind of backdrop. I feel like these 9 movies are how this one family kept messing up the galaxy and how is it going to be resolved? I think that's where the real difference is going to be felt between Return of the Jedi and Episode 9.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
David Harper Jr. asks if there has been too much Darth Vader content since the new canon reset.
I wanted to bring this one up just because I feel like we have said often, like, why are people always clamoring for a Darth Vader spinoff movie? Because we have 9 about him. Well, 6 about Darth Vader. And yeah, we have all these comics and books and stuff. And he is brought up a lot. But no, I've never really felt like there's too much Darth Vader. I adore the Darth Vader comic that's happening right now. I've enjoyed the books that he's been in, of which there have been several. And so no, it's something where Darth Vader is not someone that I'm constantly clamoring, like, give me more Vader, more Vader. Mm-hmm. But it's someone when they're like, we're going to do a 3rd Darth Vader comic series, I'll be like, sweet, sign me up, because the first 2 were great.
Yeah, it's kind of like anything we do get with him is going to be interesting, and like the character is so conflicted and you can do so much with him, so he can kind of be dropped in to just about any story as long as the timeline matches up. No, I don't think there's too much of him out there. But yeah, like you said, I'm not like, we need more about Vader, because there's not much more we can get.
And it's like, I do feel that way. It's like, I don't feel like we need more. But when they announced that, Vader and Thrawn are teaming up, I'm like, woo!
Yeah,
so
that was a big one.
Yeah, it's exciting when he's brought up, but I guess the worry is that they start to use him as a crutch.
Right. People were afraid of that happening in Solo.
Yeah, well, a lot of people were excited, like, and claiming Darth Vader is going to be in Solo. He's been seen on the set. Like, where are your sources? That never happened. And I was glad that didn't happen, because he didn't have to be in this story about the criminal underworld. We don't need the Emperor and Vader in every single spin-off movie or story just to sell tickets. Like,
and it made so much sense for him to show up at the end of Rogue One, and that scene is like Star Wars perfection. And so like him popping up in another movie in a scene that doesn't live up to his scene in Rogue One, I don't think I would like it.
Right. They did set the bar really high. That's it for patron questions. If you're a patron and you didn't see your question answered here, just head over to Patreon, where we left you a written response. If you're not a patron, you can learn more by following the link in the description. Just $1 a month gets you access to extra Star Wars Explained content, like audio commentaries for the films. What are you doing? It's very distracting. Sorry. Audio commentaries for the films, and our patron exclusive right now podcast called Between Two Suns.
Which we need to do another one of soon.
Yeah, we'll probably do one after Dragon Con, like a good roundup of how everything went.
Yeah.
But yeah, you really threw me off my game.
Sorry.
It's in the description if you're interested.
I have nothing to say. On to YouTube questions. Brian Schwartz asks if Star Wars characters ever smell bad. They're always wearing the same clothes. That's a good point.
Yeah. That one got so many upvotes, I was like, I guess we're doing this one. And yes, they have to. Rey's gotta just reek. I mean, we didn't see any other outfits in Jakku, and like, she didn't have a closet in her AT-AT.
It seems like Jakku would be a pretty sweaty, dirty place, and not a lot of water, obviously, so not a lot of showering going on. I don't know. Is there a line about Chewie smelling in the original trilogy?
There's that part where Han kicks him into the garbage chute and says, I don't care what you smell, get in there. And then they talk about the Tauntauns. I imagine they all smelled bad after the garbage chute.
Yeah.
I imagine Han and Chewie smelled bad until they showered together.
That's true. We did get a shower scene in Solo.
I was going to bring up something just that is tangentially related. When the prequels were coming out in theaters, so were the Lord of the Rings movies. And I remember just in my head making the observation that when they swung the swords in Lord of the Rings, like when they battled, Aragorn got sweaty. And then in Attack of the Clones...
Looks like a heavy sword.
In Attack of the Clones, Obi-Wan is swinging that thing like it's nothing. He never breaks a sweat. But I kind of appreciate that in The Last Jedi or The Force Awakens, like when Kylo and Rey fight, it looks like they are really going to town.
Yeah,
and
they're
same
sweaty
with Empire Strikes Back.
And dirty and kind of bloody and yeah.
It looks like they're really swinging something with weight. And I kind of like that. But
maybe in the prequels, the explanation for that is that they're all Jedi Masters and that 24/7 force field that they got going on also acts as like a deodorant.
Maybe that's a metachlorian power we don't know.
Body.
Yeah. Like the more metachlorians you have, they're also like those little scrubbing bubbles
yeah.
in the commercials.
Oh, that's a good way to view them.
Yeah.
Scrubbing bubbles.
I don't know.
In your blood. Drew Shuley wants to know if Timothy Zahn could make a book about Thrawn and Ezra, or if Star Wars Resistance will cover that.
I don't know. I could see him writing that book.
That would be a really cool book to read, especially after the whole Thrawn and Vader book.
Yeah, I definitely think the story will be addressed at some point. I don't think we've seen the last of Thrawn or Ezra. I guess in my head I was like, we'll probably pick that back up in Resistance just because it's another Dave Filoni created show and he has tended to like make these bridges between his shows. But I don't know. I could see Timothy Zahn taking that on as well. I mean, he had a bunch of Rebels references in Thrawn Alliances, so I think he's familiar enough with the world. Obviously, he knows the character of Thrawn better than anyone. I think he could tackle Ezra as well.
Yeah, part of me imagines that they might pop up in the story at some point and it won't be addressed, like what happened.
They'll just be back.
And how they got back. Like, something small will be said. They'll say something like, well, we went through a lot. And they'll just kind of glaze over it. And then maybe he could do a book about the history and what happened.
Maybe.
Because that would be like giving the fans a little tease and then giving those characters back. But then also like, hey, we're going to write a book about what really happened.
Yeah, that does feel like a Star Wars thing to do. Is just be like, here it's resolved, and now here read about how it was resolved.
Yeah. They want to go ahead and move on with what the characters may do next, and then worry about what happened to them in a book.
Yeah, I guess it all depends on the story they want to tell thematically. Like,
yeah.
What do we get from having Thrawn and Ezra back?
Yeah, because not everyone might be interested in what went on.
Yeah.
What they went through. I still imagine it's like a buddy cop movie and they have to work together and they become best friends and...
I don't know that they would. I really liked that meme someone made of like the person covering their ears and the person behind them with the trumpet. And
yeah.
The person covering their ears was Thrawn and Ezra was annoying him. I was like, yeah, I could see that. And I would love to read that story.
Yeah. Jafar asks why Ahsoka's second lightsaber is a different color from her first. Since kyber crystals take on the color based on their owners, shouldn't they both be green?
I would say first that we don't exactly know how that whole relationship between the Force and kyber crystals and Force users work. I don't think that it's necessarily like if you were to bond with every kyber crystal in the area that they would all turn the same color. It might be that, I mean, like they are supposed to be living crystals. So they have their own relationship with the Force, and it just might be the way that specific crystal bonds to that specific Force user. But let's, for argument's sake, say that, yeah, you're supposed to bond with a crystal and it will take on this brand new, or the same color every time. Why is Ahsoka's different? I would say that maybe it's showing just her growth as a Jedi and that things are changing for her because she's not...
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, she's not the same that she was as a Padawan.
Yeah. So what's the other color?
It's like a greenish yellow. I should say that I think the real reason is just to show it's a different lightsaber.
Yeah.
Like, and when they're flying around, you can see that they're slightly distinguishable from each other.
And like one is like a little shorter than the other.
Yeah.
Or something. Yeah. It's just a different shade of green.
I think it was just a design choice first and foremost, but if we're speculating on the Force here, I think that it just shows that she is different from when she made her first lightsaber. That was when she was a youngling. She made the second one in the middle of her time as a Padawan. We know she doesn't even complete her training, so she's like now feeling a little differently about the Jedi Order, and she's had Anakin teaching her, so she's been influenced by him. So I would argue that maybe just her, I don't know, sense in the Force has changed.
Yeah, it's kind of like a symbol of her growing as a character.
Yeah.
And as a person. Leo Calder 70 wants to know why Yoda knows about the rule of two if the Sith have been extinct for 1,000 years.
I think that I read this on Pablo Hidalgo's Twitter. This has never really been addressed in a story, but basically there were rumors that the Sith had survived, and they kind of figured that, yeah, there are two Sith out there, but they didn't know that those two were acting covertly. The Sith had always been just very aggressive in their nature, and they would outwardly attack the Jedi. So it was kind of beyond the Jedi's comprehension that they would take their time and be willing to work for generations to accomplish their goals. So they just went, yeah, I guess those were just rumors. We couldn't find any Sith. They're not attacking us. They must not be out there. It's more of the Jedi hubris and stuff. But what does get me about that line is that Yoda goes, always two there are. It's like, not always. It's been like that for 1,000 years, Yoda. And there were rumors about it. It's never been always.
Well, you don't see Yoda saying sometimes two there are.
Yeah, right.
Often.
Well, maybe we are going to learn some new stuff about the Sith of old. Maybe it's like they always paired off. And even though there were a lot more than just two Sith, maybe there was still like master and apprentice going on.
Yeah. I mean, everything since the beginning of time, I imagine, was documented somehow. So between books that people have written over time and, I don't know, relics that people have found, I imagine it's like, we know about dinosaurs. They're extinct.
Always two there were.
Yeah.
A carnivore and an herbivore.
There you go.
Well,
there's omnivores too.
I'll say that I think in Legends it doesn't quite match up, because it wasn't that way. It wasn't like there were master and apprentice and multiple pairs. So I guess in my mind, which is coming from mostly Legends here, it doesn't make sense. But they could explain it differently in the new canon. So
I would like to visit that Jedi library and just see what all kinds of books there are in there.
Which one, the tree or on Coruscant?
The one on Coruscant.
Oh, okay. Because there wasn't much in
the one that
the tree.
Jocasta is in charge of.
Yeah, I mean, she probably had the answer.
She's probably
in there.
a smart lady.
Yeah, we'll just say that the Jedi knew something that we don't, and that's all there is to it, I guess.
She's like the Giles of Star Wars.
I wonder how many of you watch Buffy. Smash that like button if you watch Buffy.
Yes. Last up, we've got Star Wars Gaming, who asks if the Star Wars VR games like Battlefront X-Wing Mission or the Droid Repair Bay are canon.
I would say yes. And I had not played the X-Wing Mission, so I had to watch it on YouTube because I don't have a PlayStation VR. And I had not played the Droid Repair Bay, but I did play that yesterday because you asked this question. And yes, it looks like both of those are canon and take place in / around Rogue One or The Last Jedi. The X-Wing mission is like right after they pick up Jyn off of Wobani, and you have to escort them back. And then the Droid Repair Bay is much more lighthearted and adorable, I'll say.
I haven't played either of them, so I don't know. He told me yesterday that I would like the droid one because it's adorable and has BB-8.
But like, you're on the Raddus, and I think it takes place while the Resistance evacuation is happening. Poe is in it, and also the Droid Repair Bay is mentioned in the Last Jedi cross sections. So
Ooh.
you can look on Lauratus where exactly it is. I'm pretty sure Poe runs by it in The Last Jedi. So yeah, I would say yes, they're both canon.
Yep. Just like the Secrets of the Empire and, pretty much any game aside from the mobile games, which are kind of like,
Depends on the mobile game, yeah.
I think anything going, forward is going to be pretty much canon.
Anything with a story involved, I think, yes. That's all the time we have for questions today. If you want to leave a question for next week's video, just put it in the comments below or sign up for Patreon to join our weekly Q&A discussion. Before we go, I just want to mention that we have a giveaway. This is for kind of Atlanta / the Southeast people only. A couple times before, we have worked with a local theater called Dad's Garage. They have done some nerdy or Star Wars related shows. Well, they have another Star Wars related show coming out in 2 weeks. And that's when it's going to premiere. So we're going to give away 6 tickets to that. It's called Lawrenceburg. This is like Dukes of Hazzard meets Star Wars. And it sounds pretty funny, the way that it's been described. Like the Duke boys are Han and Luke, and there's a princess in an empire, and the empire is basically Walmart. Moving into this small town. So they just made a bunch of like country redneck connections with Star Wars, and it should be a lot of fun. There's a link in the description if you are, again, able to travel to Atlanta. Mm-hmm. We're going to be there on opening night, which again is in 2 weeks. I'll put the exact date up. But if you want to see the show with us, this is your best chance.
Yep. Along with that, just if you're coming to DragonCon, make sure to follow us on Twitter and keep up to date with where we are, what we're doing. Come say hi. Come to the panels. They're usually a lot of fun. Come to the trivia and see whether or not Alex wins.
Yeah, I didn't even mention that. This is like my Super Bowl.
Yeah.
It's harder than the Schmodown.
He's not even studying for this one.
I don't have time to study. What am I going to do? Like, this is about everything in Star Wars, not just the movies. It's like I can't reread all the books every year. I just can't do it. Well, I study every day.
We'll see what happens.
You're giving me a lot of sass right now. Look. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel.
And follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.